The SEC is loading up for some Black Friday showdowns in 2025. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Well, we got to get to the big news that came out yesterday when it comes to the SEC, and two big matchups moving to Black Friday for 2025. And we got to start first with the Lone Star Showdown between Texas and Texas A&M. On Thursday, the schools announced that they will have a 7:30 Eastern kickoff on Friday, November 23rd in Austin. So it'll be a 6:30 Central kickoff coming up Friday, November 23rd. That is Black Friday this fall, Texas versus A&M. And that 2025 meeting will be game 120 between the in-state rivals, and the first on a Friday since 2007. Now, this rivalry, of course, dates back to 1894. The teams did not meet from 2012 to 2023 when Texas A&M left the Big 12 for the SEC. Of course, Texas just joined the SEC last year, and the rivalry was finally renewed after plenty of years of discussion about bringing it back as a potentially non-conference game and all that kind of stuff. But last season, Texas won 17-7 in College Station. It was a defensive dogfight, and of course, with the win, Texas improved to 11-1. With the win over the Aggies, Longhorns would go on to finish 13-3. Of course, winning that game got them punched their ticket to Atlanta, where they went to play Georgia in the SEC championship game and fell to them. But, and of course, A&M, I mean, if they would have won it, it would have been their first trip to Atlanta since joining the conference. But unfortunately for Mike Elko and his bunch, they kind of stumbled down the stretch. But ABC ESPN appears to be building up its Black Friday slate of college football action. We'll get to the other game in just a second, but look, it was a big win for Texas. It meant a lot to A&M. Remember, there was the whole talk of them fighting for, okay, we'll let Texas in the SEC, but that first year they're back, we want that game in College Station. That was the whole thing Ross Bjork, their former athletic director, fought for. Of course, he would later leave for the Ohio State job, but they fought for that. But this year they got to go play it in Austin, and we'll see what both teams look like. Texas, we've talked about his preseason. A lot of people think could be the preseason number one team heading into the season, and Texas A&M coming off of a good start year one for Mike Elko. It just kind of stinks for them that they kind of stumbled down the stretch. But that'll be a fun Black Friday game. I seem to remember, did they ever play that Thanksgiving night, or was it always Black Friday for the longest? Anyway, regardless, it'll be a fun matchup between those two on the date where everybody basically is off of work. Nobody likes to work on Black Friday, so it'll be fun to have that rivalry game back in that slot. Like we said, it'll be a 6:30 Central kickoff Friday, November 28th, Texas versus Texas A&M. The other game that also will be played on Black Friday will be the Egg Bowl. The 2025 Egg Bowl will officially kick off second straight season. The battle between Mississippi State and Ole Miss will be held on Black Friday. It'll be November 23rd. It'll be an early start, though. It's going to be 11 a.m. Central kickoff. Both programs releasing the news on social media. In Mississippi State's release, the Bulldogs reminded fans that Mississippi State basketball is also set to host SMU on Black Friday, just after the conclusion of the Egg Bowl. So you'll get Mississippi State versus Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl in football, and then you'll get Mississippi State hosting SMU. Matchup against SMU will finish a home-and-home series that the Bulldogs won last season in Dallas. Now, Ole Miss, they've dominated the Egg Bowl over the past handful of seasons. They've gone 4-1 in that stretch, and they hold a moderate edge in the all-time series, 66, 47, and 6. Of course, Ole Miss won last year's game 26-14. I don't think they covered, though. I think that spread was a little bit higher, but they've won 2 in a row now. Mississippi State, they last won in 2022. I want to say that was still under Mike Leach, and that score was 24-22. But this season's Egg Bowl should be similar to years past. Bulldogs are projected to be in the lower part of the SEC, if not dead last. And Ole Miss, they're going through a little bit of a retooling. We'll call it a rebuilding, but a retooling with Jackson Dart off to the NFL. So, look, I've said it all offseason. I'll continue to say it. I think Jeff Lebby is going to win a game in the SEC this year. I just don't know which one. Could it be the Egg Bowl? And plays really well up there. But we will see who wins the Egg Bowl this year. But that'll be a lot of fun. So here are the other games slated. Now, I have not heard any movement, if there will be any movement, to Georgia Tech. I believe that is that's scheduled to be played Friday, November 23rd as well. So will we get I don't know, will it be a triple header? Will we get Georgia Tech at 3:30 Central, and we get Egg Bowl first, then some clean old fashioned hate, and then the Lone Star Showdown at night? We'll see what ends up happening with that one. But just look at the ESPN website. They have Georgia Tech still slated for that Friday. And then the Saturday games, I mean, remember, this is the last weekend of the regular season. You're going to have LSU in Norman against Oklahoma. That'll be a fun one. We'll have your traditional Missouri versus Arkansas game. That game moves back to Fayetteville this year at Razorback Stadium. You'll have, of course, the Iron Bowl, Alabama at Auburn. So Bama having to go to Jordan-Hare. You'll have Florida State versus Florida. That one will be in Gainesville. Then we'll have Kentucky at Louisville. So Mark Stoops' company, they got to go out to Louisville this year. And the Clemson will be at South Carolina. So Dabo Swinney and his team that figures to be preseason ranked pretty high, they are going to head to Gamecocks Williams-Brice Stadium to finish off the year. And then the other one that Saturday, you'll have Vanderbilt at Tennessee playing presumably Joey Aguilar and company, Vandy, finishing off their year at Tennessee at Neyland in Knoxville. So that'll be a good one. That's a great slate of games, but like I said, we'll wait to see on Georgia Tech on Black Friday. One more note we wanted to get here, and this has kind of been a big story we've been talking about here recently, but Rahsul Faison, the running back that transferred to South Carolina and in January and has not been ruled eligible yet by the NCAA. Well, he has reportedly hired a lawyer to fight for his eligibility. Faison was signed out of the class of 2019, most recently played at Utah State, where he had over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. He entered the transfer portal and joined South Carolina in January, but he still has not heard word from the NCAA on a waiver. And even Shane Beamer talked about it this past week. But on Wednesday, Faison hired attorney Darren Heitner, who is seeking a decision and hopefully a favorable decision on his behalf. Beamer said this week, I saw it on social media like y'all did. I said, okay, that's cool. That was really Rahsul, and I think this is just kind of the next step. So like I said the other night, I understand the NCAA has a lot on their plate. There are a lot of things in the balance here, and it's something we've been trying to get an answer on since January. And I think Rahsul felt like next thing for him to try and do was maybe fast forward this thing along, is hire a lawyer. So we'll see if Faison's decision to retain Darren Heitner is going to help get any resolution to this process sooner rather than later. But, kind of like it. I mean, I feel for the kid. It's got to be a tough battle where you pick your school that you transfer to and you think you're all good. And ultimately it's, he's still sitting out there like, am I going to be able to play here or not? And, we got a ruling on Diego Pavia and some of the other guys who've played the JUCO ranks or community college or whatever, but Faison is still waiting for that decision to come from the NCAA. It's a big one. If he can play at South Carolina this year, as a massive, massive get for South Carolina in terms of having that feature back to replace Rocket Sanders from last year's team, who was so very productive and, helped South Carolina have that big year they had with Lenore Sellers at quarterback, and Rocket Sanders was a big factor in that run game. But Rahsul Faison, we will see if his lawyer can get him eligible for the upcoming football season. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, We'll get to some news on Nick Saban. That's coming your way here in just a sec. Hey, but first, did you guys know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You could turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It is gaming made simple, and it is all on your Fire TV. The latest technology for elevated playing is in there with Wi-Fi 6 and auto low latency mode. Advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds, so that you're going to need to stay competitive in the gaming world. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Check them out today. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Keep coming back and checking us out each and every day. We had some interesting news come out this week on Nick Saban. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, there's been a lot of discussion on the future of college sports and perhaps some government intervention. Will the government intervene? Well, Auburn Athletic Director John Cohen speaking on Thursday about the current landscape of college sports, and he is saying he would like the help of the federal government. At the annual Golf Invitational, Cohen telling AL.com, quote, "If you can't make decisions without ultimately appearing in court, you can't lead. And we desperately need that type of leadership. And that's why I think eventually this has to happen. And I think so many of our representatives in Washington are fully aware of this. And I'm excited about what this can become. Of course, schools around the country are currently in that state of uncertainty with the NCAA versus House settlement still undecided. And President Donald Trump has been reported to be considering an executive order aimed at regulating NIL, which of course drives so much of that uncertainty. Now, what would that look like? I don't know. I mean, that's the tough part about this is like, everybody kind of says the same blanket statements about, oh, we need this, we need change, we need this. It's the wild, wild west. It's out of control. Yet nobody really knows what the ultimate answer is here. Regulating NIL, I get it, but like, how are you going to regulate it? Are you going to cap kids on what they can earn? How's the government going to enforce that? Are you going to make it illegal to pay kids? I don't know. It's just very interesting. But of course, this news all kind of on the heels on President Trump reportedly making plans to devise a presidential commission on college sports. Now, an exact timeline on that and the enactment has not been revealed, but Nick Saban, who spoke with Trump at Alabama's commencement just last week, he, as of a couple days ago, is expected to be named the co-chair of the Presidential Commission. Also, billionaire Cody Campbell, who is Texas Tech's NIL collective founder, is to be named Saban's co-chair, according to the reports. Now, like I said, details of the commission not revealed, but the group expected to address the chaotic landscape of college sports, which includes roster limits, transfer portal, eligibility, conference makeup, and of course, NIL funding. Saban being named to the commission, look, it makes sense from a standpoint of he has been around, seen a lot, and was considered, by many to be the greatest coach of all time. And, he's voiced his displeasure with the current state of college athletics. It's probably the reason why he's still not coaching right now. Saban spoke out last year about the pay-for-play model being an issue, saying it would be the end of college football and college sports as we know it. But according to a report yesterday from Richard Johnson over at CBS Sports, Nick Saban is indeed expected to accept that position and be the co-chair of Trump's commission into college sports. And like we said, Cody Campbell from Texas Tech expected to be the co-chair along with him. Again, president considering an executive order aimed at greater scrutiny towards NIL deals. And it would still need congressional action, according to Charlie Baker. That's what he told Dennis Dodd back in April. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama previously had stints, of course, as coach at Ole Miss and Auburn, among others. He also said he spoke with the Trump administration about the problems with NIL, saying, quote, college football is the heart and soul of America, but it's in danger if we don't level the playing field. So I don't know. Is Nick Saban the right guy to get this done? Is this really the problem? And this is where I have an issue with what a lot of people say is like, oh, college football, it's not the same. It's not this, it's not that. Well, like anybody who watched this past season and watched the games, the product's as good as it's ever been. And the expanded playoff was a rating success, a revenue success. The SEC eliminating the East and the West and expanding with Texas and Oklahoma really wasn't a problem. I mean, it was an enjoyable season and the football was great and all this. So people who are acting like it's dire straits because some kids are making some money in NIL, I disagree that it's, oh my God, college football is ruined right now. It's really not. The product is still very, very good. So I just, the government intervention kind of makes you nervous because, again, how much does DC get right with stuff like this? It feels like, it feels like a lot of the people that have problems with kids getting paid are the ones who are voicing their biggest displeasure here. Again, some of the monster payments, like the kid who got paid by the Oracle CEO to go to Michigan, I get it. But at the end of the day, like, if those are people with money that want to give money to college athletes, it's at the end of the day, I feel like you should just let them. Like, if they're not going to get a return on their investment, like the Aggie fans didn't with their number one recruiting class back a handful of years ago, like, I just feel like don't start restricting this stuff. Like, what's the purpose of restricting and how are you going to enforce it? I mean, we'll just go back to the duffel bags of cash and, backdoor deals. If you're just going to say, oh, well, it's illegal to do that. Okay. Like, again, you're going to have to enforce this, and the NCAA would have to grow a spine to actually start enforcing things again. So we'll see what happens here, but I just don't know if this is the right way to go. And Greg Sankey, every year we've talked to him at SEC Media Days, has always brought up that, he thinks government intervention should be involved here. So we'll see how it plays out. One more note here in this segment. Over at Florida, they have reportedly added 2 non-conference opponents for their 2027 season. According to FBSschedules.com, the Gators will face off against South Alabama and FCS Charleston Southern coming up in the 2027 season. The Gators were originally supposed to face South Alabama during the 2020 season, but that game was not played as college football opted to stick with the all-conference schedule post-COVID. So they're going to make up that game. A contract obtained by FBschedules.com read that the Gators and Jaguars will face off September 4th, 2027. Season opener for most teams. Florida will pay South Alabama $1.2 million to play them. And then the Gators will battle Charleston Southern the week following that matchup on September 11th, 2027. They will get $500,000 for that game. So, again, not the sexiest of matchups, but South Alabama, Kane Womack's former squad, and then Charleston Southern, both going to play Florida in the first 2 weeks of 2027. So you add those with the Florida State game, and that's 3 non-conference opponents for 2027. You just wonder if the Gators are going to hold off on adding a 4th when the rumors out there on, the SEC may be switching to a 9-game conference schedule by that time. So certainly one to track there. And if you missed it a couple days ago, the rumblings came out that is indeed on the table, that ESPN and Disney are willing to pay the SEC for a 9-game conference slate. Again, the SEC wants confirmation that they can get more automatic bids into the expanded playoff before they go to 9 games, because they're looking at going, well, why hand all of our teams in the conference another loss, or half our teams in the conference another loss, if you're just going to use that to ding us and knock more teams out of the playoffs? So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I want to remind you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. When you start Monarch, you are going to realize just how much money you're spending on food delivery and streaming apps and all those kind of things. It's going to make you want to budget smarter and save more. Go take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com. That'll get you 50% off your first year. It's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege. Get half off your first year. All right, one more segment here on Locked On SEC and some interesting news over in the college baseball world, the SEC baseball world, to be specific. I'm going to start first with Paul Mainieri. He is getting crushed on social media as the new head coach at South Carolina. Of course, he was pulled out of retirement by former South Carolina AD Ray Tanner to come in and lead the Gamecocks program after they fired Mark Kingston. And Mainieri, of course, had all the great success at Notre Dame and then LSU, winning a national championship there in 2009, finished as the runner-up in 2017. But a lot of people question the move just because of Mainieri's age and kind of, shouldn't we be going younger here? Well, year one of the Mainieri era in Columbia has not been great. The Gamecocks kicked off a 3-game series with Auburn on Thursday, and they got embarrassed 24-2 in just 7 innings. And that dropped them to 26-24 overall, 5-20 in the SEC. And this comes days just after they lost 22-3 to Florida at Founders Park, a game in which the Gamecocks scored 11 in the 9th. And Mainieri signed a 5-year contract and is already committed to returning for 2026. But he's going to be expected to make massive improvements on this team in a hurry. And new AD Jeremiah Donati, he'll have a tough decision to make. I mean, is this, you want to stick with him for another year? Do you want to just say, let's figure out a buyout here? But South Carolina, I mean, they were a proud program. They're getting ready to have a documentary come out on SEC Network, talking about their back-to-back championship teams about 15 years ago. And, it's a far cry from where they once were. And look, we had Coach Mainieri on right before the start of the season. We had that on the podcast. If you want to go check it out, Locked On SEC. But, as good of a guy as he is, you got to win games. In South Carolina, they are in a tough spot right now. But the SEC baseball power rankings coming out. I saw Saturday Down South listed this. Their Week 13 power rankings. They had the South Carolina right down there at the bottom with Missouri as the 2 worst teams in the conference. Now, Missouri is awful. At least South Carolina has won 5 games in the SEC. Mizzou has not won 1. And they're in dire straits. I mean, Missouri is in danger of not winning a conference game, and that would be absolutely dreadful. Talk about bad situations. But Mizzou and South Carolina right there at the bottom. Next, you got Kentucky at 14, Mississippi State at 13, Florida at 12, Texas A&M at 11. Kentucky really has to do some work to dig out of this hole that they're in. Mississippi State at 29-19. They're 10-14 in the SEC. They did fire Chris Lemonis, and the Bulldogs went 4-2 over the past 2 weekends. But they'll get Mizzou a single win at home against Ole Miss this weekend. Probably gets the Bulldogs into the NCAA tournament. So keep an eye on Mississippi State, even with their head coach gone. When it comes to Florida, they are 10-2 in their last 4 SEC series matchups, so they are really starting to turn the tide. But their remaining matchups are at Texas and at home against Alabama. They could win the Bama series, but man, at Texas is going to be very tough. Texas A&M, they're 27-20 overall, 10-14 in the conference, and a home series win against Mizzou this weekend is, look, they'll sweep Missouri. They did a great job against LSU last weekend as well. So I don't want to guarantee A&M is in, but it feels like at this point they are most likely into the NCAA tournament. Coming in the top 10, you got Ole Miss sitting at number 10. They're 33-15 overall. So they're in a good spot. Oklahoma is 9th. They're 32-14 overall, 13-11 in the SEC. And then into your top 8, you got Alabama at 37-12. Tennessee at 38-11. They are in number 14 RPI. And on paper, they got home games against Vanderbilt and then at Arkansas. Seems tough, but the Vols have lost 4 of their last 5 weekend series. And so if they lose both of these matchups remaining, even regional hosting will get dicey for Tennessee. I mean, that's a squad we thought was a lock for super regional for so much of this season, and they've just kind of fallen apart here as of late. The ones that are kind of likely for super regionals, you got Auburn. They rank them as the 6th best team in the SEC at 33-15. They're only 13-11 in the league, but a number 4 national RPI. That tells the full story of what they've had going on. So, look, Tigers' home series against South Carolina should lock up, super regional for them, and then their ending series at Ole Miss, 2-1 in that. I mean, they should be a national seed. Vanderbilt, they've got number 5, 34-15 overall. They have the number 3 national RPI, so they're in good shape. LSU at number 4, they're 38-11. Their RPI is number 9, but they do have a home set against Arkansas and a road series at South Carolina, so they need to finish strong. I think they go 500. They will be super regional host. And then your top 3 are all pretty much locks at this point. Georgia 3, Arkansas 2, and Texas at 1. So, yeah, I know Arkansas just swept Texas, but both of them are pretty safe for being national seeds. And Georgia as well. They have been outstanding as well down the stretch. So, all right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. For your second listen, you can check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow coming back at 6.